Hey y'all, I am back with another chapter from Will Smith's autobiography, simply entitled Will. Now I have to admit, I was losing my motivation for getting through this book because it just seemed like a lot of my viewers weren't really interested. My views for these videos are pretty low. So when that happens, I could lose my motivation quickly. But since this slap, I've regained my motivation to finish this book. So we're going to get back into it with chapter 12. Chapter 12 is called Desire. What does he want? As an actor, this is the single most important question to ask of the character you are preparing to portray. His want dramatic quest is the first pillar of behavior. What someone desires is a portal into the essential truth of their personality. If you want to understand why someone did something, you need only answer the question, what did he want? An actor's overarching focus is to unearth the system of wants that intertwine and sometimes collide with the mind of a character to create the psychological driving force. Acting is like building out of a new personality for yourself from scratch. Once you have a foundational comprehension of a character's central motivation, the real acting fun begins with the second question. Why does he want it? But that's for later. The war between desire and obstacle is the heart and soul of dramatic storytelling. Sometimes the obstacles are internal. Those are the fun ones. In filmmaking circles, there is a simple axiom that describes the structure of a great character journey. Somebody wants something badly, and it goes for it, against all odds. Another variation is a person falls into a hole and tries to get out. If you think about any movie you've ever liked, any character you've ever rooted for, it's because they wanted something you could relate to, and they struggled, risking life and limb to achieve it. What's true about movies is also true about life. You tell me what you want, and I'll tell you who you are. What are we doing, man? JL asked me one day out of nowhere. What do you mean? I mean, everything. There are too many people. There are too many things happening. I can't function like this. If you want me to help you, I need to know what I'm helping you to do. Shit is going good, Jay. I think you're just not seeing it. No, JL insisted. I am seeing it. I'm seeing it all over the place. And I'm focused. And I'm seeing us about to do the same shit we did last time. I'm not going to be out here just winging it. I need to know what the goal is. I didn't really understand his question. In my mind, he was just scared. I knew he didn't do well with disorganization. He was a minimalist, damn near an ascetic. He had very few clothes. His bedroom was always kept in impeccable condition, and everything in his life had a place and a purpose. And when things weren't neatly arranged in a way he could get his head around, he'd feel disrupted, disturbed, and ultimately would want no part of it. So I was trying to give him a stabilizing, simple answer. The goal is not to be broke, Jay, I said, to be able to have fun, to be able to travel and live how we want, to not have the IRS taking our shit no more. So technically, that's 5 goals. And that's my problem. What is the dream? What are we trying to build? What do you want? He pressed definitively. I had never said this out loud before. I had tried the phrase in my head a few times, but I'd never given it voice. Mama once laid out about 50 family photos of me and my brother and sisters, all throughout our childhood. She stood smugly over them and asked me if I noticed anything. I scoured the pictures like a detective, trying to discover the clue that would break the case. After a few minutes, I gave up. I don't notice anything, Mom, I said. Look at your brother and sisters. Notice how in some pictures, they're looking off to the side or their faces are twisted or hidden behind someone. Now look at you. There's not a single photo where you are not looking directly into the camera. That's his Moon-Neptune conjunction. I've always had a sense of the camera. I love performing. I like the camera. And more important, it likes me. I had held a secret dream for as long as I could remember. I didn't even feel comfortable dreaming it. I didn't deserve to dream this big, but in my quietest moments alone, there was a consistent yearning, an emotional compass that was always trained on the Hollywood sign. I wanted to do what Eddie Murphy was doing. I wanted to make people feel how I felt the first time I saw Star Wars. I wanted to be Eddie Murphy in Star Wars. So for the first time ever, I said it out loud to JL. I want to be the biggest movie star in the world. JL is the type of guy who rarely reacts outwardly. His standard face is poker. Whatever you say, JL, your mom is on the phone. Or JL, the oven just exploded and the whole crib is on fire. Or I want to be the biggest movie star in the world. His countenance remains exactly the same. He never divulges what he's thinking. So you always find yourself leaning in for some tiny hint. I leaned in hard. Now that's a goal, JL said. Stephen Covey in The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People said there are only 2 human problems. 1, knowing what you want, but not knowing how to get it. And 2, knowing what you want. Clarity of mission is a powerful cornerstone of success. Knowing what you want gives direction to your life. Every word, every action, every association can be accurately chosen and harnessed to precipitate your desired outcomes. What you eat, what you sleep, where you go, who you talk to, what you allow them to say to you, who your friends are, can all be corralled and launched toward your wildest dreams. Desire, however, is a double-edged sword, but that's for later. I didn't know that back then. When JL has a goal, his ability to educate and transform his mind is beyond that of anyone I've ever met. He spent the next few months reading every screenplay in Hollywood, old ones, new ones, bad ones, good ones, successful movies that had already come out, failed movies that were never released, hits and flops, and everything in between. He probably read 100 screenplays, and we would discuss the pros and cons of each. We had our goal, and the first question we asked was, what makes someone a movie star as opposed to simply an actor? See what I mean? Everything he does is strategic. It's not like everything, like things are happening organically in his life. So the recipe part comes in with the film, is his Aries on the 12th. I'm trying to find that perfect recipe. Aries on the 12th, because the 12th house deals with filmmaking, and then Mars being in Virgo. Virgo is the recipe. Movie stars tend to play likable characters who embody and depict the best of humanity, courage, ingenuity, success against the odds. I love the idea of being a better person in a movie than I was in real life. I could protect people. I could kill bad things. I could fly. All the women would love me. They have to. It says it right here in the script. I came up with a way to describe what makes a great movie star character. I call it the 3 F's of movie stardom. You have to be able to fight. You have to be funny, and you have to be good at sex. Beneath the 3 F's are our deepest human yearnings. Fighting equates to safety, security, and physical survival. Being funny equates to joy, happiness, and freedom from all negativity. And being good at sex equates to the promise of love. And encompassing these 3 qualities, the biggest movie star makes the biggest movies in the world. Movie stars put asses in seats. The next obvious question was, what are the key elements of the highest movies? JL grabbed a list of the top 10 grossing movies of all time to see if we could determine a pattern. And it was crystal clear. 10 out of the top 10 films of all time had special effects. 9 out of 10 had special effects and creatures. 8 out of 10 had special effects, creatures, and a romantic storyline. We would ultimately discover that all of the top 10 movies were about love, but we didn't notice that back then. We knew what we were looking for. Now we just had to go find it and convince whoever had it to give it to us. The problem was that the biggest movies in the world were also the most expensive to produce and promote, meaning they were hyper risky propositions. They were career making or career ending for everyone involved. I was young, unknown, inexperienced, and Black, trying to convince studios to bet $150 million production budgets and $150 million promotional budgets on my charm, good looks, and modesty. Tanya used to smoke weed. That's his moon conjunct Neptune. One of the manifestations of his moon conjunct Neptune is to attract a woman that likes to get high. Then he says, to this day, I never have. What does he want a medal for that? I think Daddy-O's alcoholism made me keenly attuned to all substance use around me. I tried to let her do her. But now with the clarity of my new mission, I couldn't see how my girl smoking weed would be helpful. I was ready for a family. I was ready to start my life. I told her she had to stop. My demand was not received well. You are such a priss, Tanya said. It's just weed. I'm not snorting coke off the bathroom floor. Drugs are drugs, I said, like it was deep. No, they are not, she said indignantly. This is not that serious. Oh, this shit is very serious, I said. I could smell the weed in your nose hairs. I'll make you a deal, I said. You stop smoking for 30 days. Prove to me you're not addicted. Then we'll talk about it. That's him with his moon conjunct Neptune, quincunx Saturn, and Aries. Him being conflicted and trying to make a deal with her to stop smoking so that, they could try to work things out. She thought for a moment. I got the sense that she could have done it, but something about the inflexibility of my stance seemed to trigger a deep-rooted resistance within her. She loved me. She wanted to please me, but there was no way in hell she was going to let me control her. So with that moon conjoining Neptune, quincunx, Saturn, and Aries, that can point to his attempts to control his women, but he always falls flat on his face. I could still see her standing there, arms folded, head cocked to the side, knowing she was about to make a big decision. Then calmly, she said no. When you know what you want, it clarifies what you don't want. And even painful decisions, though not easy, become simple. Cool, I said. That's that this or that of the oppositions between his Libra energy and his Aries energy. Have you ever seen those National Geographic documentaries on Alaskan salmon migration? The ones where the hungry brown bears stand in the middle of the river, waiting for a salmon to jump out of the water and directly into their mouths? That's how Alfonso Ribeiro and I used to stand outside the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air's casting office. Every Black actress in Hollywood made the pilgrimage through those hallowed halls. One day in 1990, me and Alf were sitting, having lunch. Alf was waxing philosophical about something. He is deeply passionate and opinionated, and he always felt that if he said things loud enough and chopped his right hand into the palm of his left hand hard enough, that it made whatever he was saying true. Then she walked by. I damn near choked to death on my Roscoe's chicken and waffles. Who the fuck is that? I whispered to Alf between the relentless chops. She is not from LA. East Coast recognized East Coast. She was pissed. Apparently the casting agent had just told her she wasn't tall enough to play my girlfriend on the show. She hated that about Hollywood, that somehow her height or lack thereof was of more vital importance to the art than her abundant talents. Oblivious to all this, I stepped into the river. What up, shorty? I said, poorly choosing my descriptive. Whatever, nigga, move, she said, gesturing me away with the swat of her hand. And with that, she was gone. That was the first time I ever saw Jada Pinkett. It was love at first sight. That love at first sight, that's his Mercury conjoining Venus, opposing that Saturn, Mercury ruling his fifth house, and the whole work theme with Virgo on the fifth, him meeting someone through his line of work. Alfonso found out that Jada had landed a role on a sitcom called A Different World, the 8:30 spinoff of The Cosby Show. He knew one of the writers on the show, and he found out when Jada was shooting. It was perfect. We taped on Friday, but A Different World taped on Thursday. So me and Alf could head over right after work. By this point, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was bubbling hard, and me and Alf were hot in these Hollywood streets. The plan was he and I would go to the taping of A Different World, and we would sit in the audience. That would give me an opportunity to adequately Fresh Prince flex. The audience would, of course, erupt when we showed up. Jada would hear all of the cheering during the scene, and she would look out to the crowd and realize it was because of me. And in parentheses, he puts "and Alf." So I pulled out the 24-karat herringbone gold chain, the Fresh Prince dancing across my chest, the T, the F, and the P gleaming with VVS1 clarity, round, brilliant cut diamonds everywhere, fresh to death, ready to stunt. Everything was rolling like clockwork. Me and Alf step in. The place goes boom. I didn't see Jada, but she knew I was in the building. I shushed the crowd. "Come on, y'all. They're trying to shoot," I whispered magnanimously as me and Alf took our front row seats in the right corner. Jada's scene didn't come till about midway through the taping, but there she was in all her East Coast glory. She was fire, her accent, her mannerisms, her hair, her attitude. She felt like home. Between scenes, Alfonso saw his writer friend, Orlando Jones, who was talking to a gorgeous caramel-skinned woman in the front row center. She's clearly not from LA either. I could tell by her slight discomfort with the grandeur of everything. I make my way over. I say, "What's up?" to Orlando, and I introduce myself to the woman. Her name is Cherie Zampino. She is from New York, not real New York, Schenectady, near Albany, damn near Canada. "Now, here's the deal," I said. "We're just meeting, so I'm gonna give you a pass on this one. But the next time somebody asks you where you're from, you are forbidden to say New York when you know damn well you are from Schenectady." If she had been drinking water, she would have done a spit take. She begins to laugh uncontrollably, as if I had given voice to her own secret inner whispers. The bell rings, signaling for the audience to settle down so that the taping can continue. But she hasn't gotten herself back together yet. She needs to be quiet, but I'm definitely not going to allow that. I lean into her ear. "It's misleading and an utter misrepresentation of the truth. If you tell people you're from New York, they're thinking the Bronx, Brooklyn, hell, even Staten Island. They're going to think you're cool. Then they find out you're from Schenectady." At this point, she's nearly choking with laughter, begging me to please be quiet. But there's no chance of that. First of all, I would not have found that funny. I would have found that insulting and corny. "I'm just saying, you shouldn't be going around lying to people. Fucking Schenectady is not New York. You're sitting here representing Canada. You should be wearing a maple leaf sweater and handing out syrup." Fortunately, the scene ends and she is free to laugh out loud, her makeup running, eyes red, totally out of breath. She said the thing that any comedian who has ever told a joke craves to hear, the ultimate in comedic approval. "You are dumb, man." I didn't meet Jada that night. Cherie and I left together before the show was even over. We laughed all the way through dinner, all the way through that fall. And 3 months later, we were married. Willard Carroll Smith III was born on November 11th, 1992. From birth, we called him Trey, since he was the third Willard Smith. So Trey's son is in Will's sixth house. So that could deal with the anxiety that Will was going through when he first had him. And also, that's just telling about like maybe his level of help. Maybe Trey has felt like his father hasn't helped him to the degree that he's helped his other children. So here's part of the Just the Two of Us song, just the two of us lyrics. that Will has posted in his book. He says, from the first time the doctor placed you in my arms, I knew I'd meet death before I let you meet harm. Although questions arose in my mind, would I be man enough? Against wrong, choose right and be standing up? From the hospital that first night, took an hour just to get the car seat in right. People driving all fast got me kind of upset. Got you home safe, placed you in your bassinet. That night, I don't think one wink I slept. As I slipped out of my bed to your crib, I crept. Touched your head gently, felt my heart melt, because I knew I loved you more than life itself. Then to my knees, I begged the Lord, please, let me be a good daddy, all he needs. Love, knowledge, discipline too. I pledge my life to you, just the two of us. That is the public depiction of Trey's birth and my introduction to fatherhood. But that first night was far more emotionally tumultuous than my poetic verse suggests. That would be his Scorpio, Trey's Scorpio sun and Will's sixth house. That's why he's saying that first night was emotionally tumultuous. Cherie was asleep, and we had a tiny bassinet for Trey in an adjacent bedroom. I couldn't stop looking at him. I was terrified. I had wanted this my whole life, and here I was with my son, my wife, my family, my turn. My body was quaking, overwhelmed with the immensity of the responsibility to this tiny human life. I fell to my knees, sobbing uncontrollably, praying to God, please help me do it right. Please help me to be a good daddy. That's represented by his Mercury opposition Saturn. My mind swerved and careened like a drone through my childhood. I had talked so much shit about Daddy-O. Now here I was. Would I be smart enough to orchestrate the building of a wall for my son? Could I put food on the table and keep the lights on without fail? Would I be strong enough to fend off someone who came to kill him? It's 3 a.m. I'm on my knees. I'm just a little boy. I never wanted my daddy so bad. And then something clicked, deep in a place where nothing had clicked before. A decision, an ironclad conviction. I wiped my tears. I stood up. I gently touched Trey's head, and I knew there were only two possibilities. I was going to be the best father this planet had ever seen. I bet you his kids can beg to differ. Or two, I was going to be dead. I literally can count on one hand the number of times in my life I've been sick. I never get sick. That would be his Scorpio intercepted in the sixth house with Mars, ruler of Scorpio, in Virgo. Because that could produce a strong constitution. His immune system could be real strong. It was a Friday night, tape night at the Fresh Prince. I had been vomiting all day. Now that goes back to that Scorpio intercepted in the sixth house. His moon conjoined to Neptune in Scorpio. I could barely move. I'm pretty sure it was food poisoning. I stayed in my dressing room during pre-tape and rehearsals in order to conserve my energy to make one big burst in front of a live audience. Cherie had come to the set to take care of me. She couldn't understand why we couldn't just tape another day. How would you ever respect me if I did that? I said between gags. Working while sick, injured, or under difficult conditions became a badge of honor for me. I wanted to thrive where my competition would fold. I wanted my wife to know that I was invincible. Women and Europeans always shake their heads or describe this trait negatively, but on a primal level, it's really hard to not respect a warrior. That's him tapping into his Aries North Node. Friday nights became major networking events for us. JL would invite sponsors, executives, anyone from the business world we were looking to impress. Our approach was to invite their entire families. When someone's kids and spouse have a great time, they're more inclined to want to be in business with you. And there was no greater time to have than Friday nights at the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. This particular night was a big one, but I was dying. I didn't have it in me to entertain. Cherie took the reins. That's his moon in the sixth house, woman helping him out. Moon conjoined to Neptune could be a very devoted woman that helps him out, helps him to hold it together, hold it down. I had never seen her in this light. She moved the meetings out of my dressing room and set up space on the stage. She got extra food and asked the rest of the cast to take up some of the schmoozing weight. She wasn't only doing it for her husband, she loved it. She moved from couple to couple, family to family, engaging on whatever topic they found interesting. She showed the kids around the stage. She exchanged telephone numbers with the wives and made sure everyone had the time of their lives. She held it down. So I was able to pop in for 10 minutes, seal the deals, and get to the taping. Cherie was the perfect hostess, bringing life to the wife I had seen in my head. Like Tajia with Pooh Richardson, Cherie and I were a team in the Will becoming the biggest movie star in the world business. We bought a townhome in Toluca Lake, strategically located 9 minutes from NBC Burbank, where the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was now shooting. So him moving somewhere where he was strategically located, that's that Mercury conjunct Venus, 6th house in Libra. This proximity would give me the maximum time at home and at work. There were prime logistics. The condo was also just 7 minutes from the Buena Vista apartments, where the whole Philly squad was headquartered, and only 15 minutes over the hill into Hollywood, making it perfectly situated staging area for my impending cinematic invasion. One Saturday afternoon, as I was studying my lines for Monday's table read, Cherie was in the kitchen cooking, which was just one of the aspects of her creative spirit. I love the artist within her. She had gone to the Fashion Institute of Technology. That's very Moon conjunct Neptune, wife or a girlfriend that's very much into fashion, or that she does fashion by trade. She could make her own clothes. She could paint. It was the first time that I had ever seen someone hang their own art in their home. So him attracting women who are artists, very Moon conjunct Neptune. I thought that was hot. She was also a martial artist. That's that 6th house Venus, and also the 6th house Moon, because 6th house is martial arts. Her father was a knife Dan grandmaster and instructor of Taekwondo, and Cherie could defend herself if she had to. I wonder if she's kicked Will's ass on occasion. Also, Jupiter in Virgo is ruling his 7th house, so that could deal with his wife that is skilled in martial arts. Cherie had a strong nurturing instinct. Her father was Italian, and her grandma, Zampino, had been an expert homemaker. The Italian side of Cherie's family had owned the L&M supermarket in Schenectady, so they always had tons of food, and the heart of the family was centered around mealtime. So him getting with a mixed chick, that's his Sagittarius on the 7th. When Cherie's parents separated, her mother re-entered the workforce, so the kitchen became Cherie's domain. Cherie loved to cook and feed people. She was the only person I ever met who could turn scraps into a delicious feast the way Gigi could. We'd have viewing parties each week for new Fresh Prince of Bel-Air episodes. Cherie took to it instinctively, cooking for everyone and making the house warm and inviting. There were always at least 5 Philly homeboys in the house, conspicuously stalking around the kitchen, preparing to pounce on the next succulent morsel Cherie tossed into their cages. Why is he always referring to his friends as like hyenas and animals and stuff? That's strange. That is that Virgo influence. Cherie's vision of a happy life was joyful, harmonious, nurturing, taking care of people, homemaking. She was happy to live a simple life as a mom and a wife. But that's not what Will wanted. I wanted to conquer. My definition of love was protection and provision, securing the family's physical and financial future. So him saying he wanted to conquer, that's him tapping into his Aries North Node, him having that Saturn in Aries. My belief was a meal is a lot less enjoyable if you have to eat it in a tent underneath an overpass. He thinks he's so profound with his statements. That's his moon in Scorpio ruling that 3rd house. But with it conjoined to Neptune, a lot of times he'll say some shit, people be scratching their heads like, what the fuck is wrong with him? Now, Omar was setting up a small portable studio in the garage when the phone rang. Yo, Will, it's JL, Omar yelled. I ran over and picked it up. What up, Jay? Hey, I was just making sure you were home. I need to talk to you immediately. Why? What's up? What happened? I said urgently. I need to talk to you in person. I'm on my way. Click. I always hate when people do that. Don't call me with the fucking emergency voice. Get me on the phone and then not tell me what happened. That's him getting mad. That's at Mars and Virgo square and Gemini ascendant. We're on the phone. Just say it. Fortunately, the agreeable logistics meant I only had to wait 9 minutes, 2 minutes for him to get to his car, and 7 minutes for him to drive from the Bronx Buena Vista apartments. We saved time on this side because I'd be waiting for him at the front door. 9 minutes later, JL pulls up. He seems okay, so it's not medical. He looks anxious, but not fearful. He's kind of smiling, but sad. That is clearly something he could have just said over the phone. What up, Jay? We exchanged a standard Philly half pound, half hug. JL preferred the variation where you clutch the person's hand and keep your arm across your chest, giving you the sense of a hug, but maintaining his personal space at the same time. He dives right in. All right, look, there's a studio that wants you to co-star in a gangster movie called 8 Heads in a Duffel Bag. They're prepared to pay you $10 million. God damn. I wrapped both arms around the top of my head. I went to give JL a high five, which he returned half-heartedly. He held on to my hand and said, and I came here to advise you not to take it. Wait, what? I don't think you should accept the part. It's not right. Still holding his hand, I wanted to rip his arm out of its shoulder socket and then beat him to death with it. Instead, I said calmly, it sounds right as hell to me, Jay. It's not. It's the wrong look. I read it 5 times. I kept trying to make it be right. It's not. I was just going to turn it down and not tell you. Look, at the end of the day, it's your call. I was just there with you for these last few years, so I will rock with you whatever you decide to do, but I'm advising you against it. If you truly want to be the biggest movie star in the world, do not take this movie. Jay, that's a lot of money, dude. Tom Cruise wouldn't take this movie, JL said. We turned down 8 Heads in a Duffel Bag. JL, as my manager, earned a 15% commission. When he advised me to turn down 8 Heads in a Duffel Bag, he was walking away from $1.5 million for himself. Have I mentioned that he was still living in his childhood bedroom at his mother's house? He was taking the risk with me because he believed in the vision. He believed in me. About a month later, JL called me hyped. This time, he behaved as a respectable human and told me what was going on over the phone. I've got the one, he said excitedly. JL never gets excited. I was being offered a supporting role in the film adaptation of John Guar's Pulitzer Prize finalist stage play called 6 Degrees of Separation. So that made me look at, I tried to see if I saw the 6th degree anywhere in his chart. I don't see it, but there is 6 degrees between Saturn and Venus. Neptune is at the 24th degree of Scorpio. So I was like, that could be where that 6 degrees come in, because you could definitely see titles of people's films in their charts. Plus, you'll be protected in 3rd build. Oh, let me go back. This is right where we want to be, JL said. People are not taking you seriously yet as an actor. We got to go against stereotypical roles. We need to make people forget that we're watching a rapper. We got to make them see a movie star. Now, when he said we got to go against stereotypical roles, what he was really getting at was that Will was going to have to play a gay guy, or you could say a gay guy scammer, which is even worse, in this movie. So if you never saw 6 Degrees of Separation, check it out. It ain't a bad movie. It is kind of long and drawn out in some cases and kind of dry in some parts. But to just really see Will Smith in action in his first film, check that movie out. There's a scene in there where it's a sex scene between him and another man. So it's interesting that JL, his manager, thought that 6 Degrees of Separation would be a better fit for Will than the other film, knowing that in 6 Degrees of Separation, Will Smith would have to play a gay man. So I'm like, does JL know something about Will that Will's not coming out straightforward with? Reading along, he said, plus you'll be protected in third bill, surrounded by a veteran cast, Stockard Channing, Donald Sutherland, and Sir Ian McKellen. The pedigree is ridiculous. I want everyone to see you with that level of actor. We got to shock these people and get their attention. And every single word your character says is brilliant. It's one of the best written things I've ever read. In fact, the movie is about your character. This is star-making material. Damn, Jay, you were hyped about this one. I'm telling you, this is the one, he said, punching his fist into his hand. Word, how much? Well, this one's different. I get that, Jay, but how much? I said, I took 6 Degrees of Separation for 300,000. And remember the other movie, what was it offering him, like 20 million? JL had done his part. He had found exquisite material powered by world-class artists. Now it was on me. My military upbringing, that's his 4th house, Mars and Virgo, kicked into gear. I had my mission. I needed to smash this role. I immediately flew to London with JL to see the final weeks of Stockard Channing's West End stage performance of the play. And once the shooting schedule was set, Cherie, Trey, and I moved to New York. 6 Degrees of Separation is about a wealthy white couple who live on the Upper East Side of New York City. They are older and lonely empty nesters whose kids have recently moved out. They spend their days collecting and dealing famous art. Then one night, a young Black man shows up on the doorstep. He is cut from being mugged and stabbed on the street. He says he is a friend of their children from Harvard and the son of Sidney Poitier. The couple takes the young man in, and over the course of the story, Paul, my role, turns out to be a con artist. Yet, despite Paul's victimizing the couple, he and Louisa, played by Stockard Channing, strangely begin to fall for each other. Now, what fits Will Smith's role of a con artist is that Moon conjoined to Neptune in Scorpio, making a quincunx with Saturn in Aries. This character was so drastically different from who I was, and his life experience was so foreign to me that I felt impelled to employ method acting, something I knew absolutely nothing about. I memorized the words of the entire screenplay, verbatim. That's his moon conjoined to Neptune with the moon ruling the third. When you have Cancer on the third, you could have excellent memory. And then when you have that moon conjoined to Neptune, that's like having a photographic memory. I vowed that I would not miss a single line while I was on set. That's his Aries on the 12th house cusp with Mars and Virgo in the 4th. During the months of my preparation, I would spend 4 or 5 days at a stretch without breaking character. Not once, not one moment. See, that Moon-Neptune conjunction could cause him to go too far into a role. So that is very much dealing with that method acting technique, and it could cause him to lose himself if he's not careful. I would go to the jewelry store or a bakery and try to discern what Paul likes and dislikes were. I wanted to get comfortable in real life and real situations, not only thinking as Paul would think, but learning to involuntarily feel the way that he would feel. This is why a lot of actors are mentally ill, because they do all this stuff, like they lose touch with who they are, or some of them don't even know who they are, which makes them good actors. Will, it was fun at first, but then slowly and imperceptibly, I lost touch with my own likes and dislikes. I lost access to the intonation and rhythm of my own speech. I lost touch with Will Smith. Cherie started to say things like, "Why are you looking at me like that? And stop talking to me like that." I was totally oblivious. I couldn't figure out what she meant. In my mind, I was going back and forth between Paul and me, but Will Smith had quietly slipped away. Cherie was suddenly living with a stranger. This issue is also dealing with his Mercury being conjoined to Venus and Libra. That's him like preparing for a character role, or, to play a certain character and actually living that life on a daily basis because it's in the 6th house, opposing his Saturn and Aries, losing touch with his identity in the process. In my mind, I was going back and forth between Paul and me, but Will Smith had quietly slipped away. Cherie was suddenly living with a stranger. We tend to think of our personalities as fixed and solid. We think of our likes and our dislikes, our beliefs, our nationalities, our political affiliations and religious convictions, our mannerisms, our sexual predilections, etc., as set as us. But the reality is, most of the things that we think of as us are learned habits and patterns, and entirely malleable. See, that's where he's wrong. Not everybody's malleable, but with his moon conjoined to Neptune like that and ruling his 3rd house, that moon ruling his 3rd house, his mind is very malleable. So he can actually become anybody that he wants to become. And take that into account when you're thinking about that incident at the Oscars when he slapped Chris Rock. So let me just reread this part. But the reality is, most of the things that we think of as us are learned habits and patterns and entirely malleable. See, that's from his own perspective. Not everybody is malleable like him. And the danger when actors venture out to the far ends of our consciousness is that sometimes we lose the breadcrumbs marking our way home. And that's that moon conjoined to Neptune in Scorpio. He goes too deep into it. We realize that the characters we play in the film are no different than the characters we play in life. Look at that. He's not differentiating between reality and the film world. It's all about characters to him. That's that Libra influence as well. Libra is characterization and characters. Will Smith is no more real than Paul. They're both characters that were invented, practiced, and performed, reinforced and refined by friends, loved ones, and the external world. Do y'all hear that? He's basically telling y'all that he's not real. And you can't ever just trust what he says or does, because he could always be playing a role, putting on an act. And this is what I'm talking about with that award show. He was just putting on a role. He was playing an act. It was just like he was in a movie. What you think of as yourself is a fragile construct. And again, that's him. He's trying to project this onto everybody, but it's himself. He's the fragile one. Joe Rogan even talked about his fragile mind. That's exactly what he has with that moon Neptune conjunction influencing that 3rd house. He can become whatever somebody wants him to become. Cherie and I were in the first few months of our marriage with a brand new baby. And for Cherie, I can imagine that this experience was unsettling, to say the least. Meanwhile, notice that he didn't mention the gayness of that character yet. I can imagine that this experience was unsettling, to say the least. She married a guy named Will Smith, and now she was living with a guy named Paul Poitier. And think about it. Remember, Will said he got deep into that role as Paul in 6 Degrees of Separation, and he started living his life as Paul. So if Paul is gay, having gay sex, I'm sure Will Smith even took it that far too. See, you got to read between the lines when it comes to Will. Then he goes on to say, and to make matters worse, during shooting, I fell in love with Stockard Channing, not as Will, but as Paul. I couldn't turn him off. After the film wrapped, Cherie and Trey and I moved back to LA. Our marriage was off to a rocky start. I found myself desperately yearning to see and speak to Stockard. I only saw her once. And again, this is a testament to Will's mental illness. I only saw her once and I never said anything, but she's a vet. And I sensed that she knew what had happened. She probably said the words Cherie and Trey 50 times. Fortunately, it was time to go back to work on The Fresh Prince. "What the fuck are you doing?" Alfonso blurted out. "What do you mean, Alfonso?" I said. That. Why are you talking like that?" "Talking like what?" Paul said. "Like that," Karen chimed in. The W is before the H. "It's not what, Will," Alfonso said frustratedly. I had lost touch with the Fresh Prince. I couldn't remember how he walked or talked or which Jordans he preferred. This went on for 10 full episodes at the beginning of season 4. I had lost my sense of humor, my timing, my swag, my charisma, and my ability to improvise and ad-lib. Cast and crew alike were terrified. This was the season that Alfonso truly began to shine. For the first few episodes, the writers had to write away from my character and toward Carlton. Alfonso stepped up and took the comedic weight. No one knew what was happening. No one was relating my behavior on the set of Fresh Prince to my ill-conceived foray into the dangerous psychological world of method acting in 6 Degrees. I couldn't tell a joke to save my life. The scary part was that I couldn't see what everybody else saw. But if enough people tell you that you're drunk, then you should probably sit down. So I immediately hired 5 or 6 of my friends from Philly to work on the writing staff, on the crew, and to surround me on set while I relearned how to play the character of Will. It worked. Right around mid-season, something clicked. I was in a scene with Karen, and my character was trying to convince her to go on a date with his teacher, but had a mole next to his left nostril. And for Hillary, this was an absolute deal breaker. My character was begging her to just give him a chance. And in a moment of career-saving comedic inspiration, I ad-libbed, "Come on, you're making a mountain out of a molehill." The audience roared. I was back, and method acting was gone forever. I am not trying to relinquish any of my responsibility for the deterioration of my marriage, but I believe firmly that the early months of our union, being married by my disappearance into the character of Paul in 6 Degrees of Separation, created a disconnect between Cherie and me from which would never recover. He's deflecting blame onto the film. At the end of 1993, 6 Degrees of Separation came out to widespread critical acclaim. Stockard Channing was nominated for an Oscar for her performance, and critics wrote glowing reviews of my surprising casting as Paul. JL was right. My name started to be discussed in Hollywood as a serious actor. Achieving goals requires strict organization and unwavering discipline. I began to lean more into structure and order, but Cherie was an artist. She cooks by feel, not by recipe. She was much more fluid, intuitive, and less structured. It drove me crazy. 6:17 is not 6 o'clock. Him being all about punctuality and all that, that's that Virgo energy. It was Friday night, tape night. My barber had gotten into a car accident. He was fine, but he wasn't going to be able to cut me for the show. 5 hours before the taping of a network sitcom, and a young man from Philadelphia is about to be forced to go on a network television without a fresh fade. Never. I put out the 911 call for a barber. A guy named Slice came back as the blue ribbon of the Philly Fade Standard. I hit him up. "Yo, Slice, what's up?" "What's happening, Will?" "I'm jammed up over here. I need you, brethren." At the time, my fade was legendary. To cut my hair for the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was not only a challenge, but also a catapult for a young barber in Hollywood. That whack-ass fade he used to rock, come on. "Damn, Will, I would love to, man," Slice said, "but I got a cut I have to do in San Diego. The client's paying me cash, and I got my kids for the weekend. San Diego, man, that's a 2-hour drive both ways. You need to come get this local money. Oh, trust me, I would prefer local money. I would not be driving to San Diego if I didn't need it so bad. I got my kids. I got to break my baby mama off something. How much is he paying you? Actually, whatever it is, I'll double it. Come get this local money. Slice was being paid $500 for the San Diego cut. I promised him $1,000 to come directly to the set. I didn't have cash with me, so I called Cherie. Babe, how much cheese you got on you? Probably about 2,000 wide, Cherie said. All right, I'm going to send a guy named Slice by in about an hour, so just break him off a G. Okay, Cherie said. All right, I love you. Catch you later. Slice came to the set, sharpened me up perfectly. He lived up to his name. I gave him the address to the house and went and shot the episode. That next week, my barber still wasn't ready to come back to work, so I hit Slice. What up, man? It's Will. Hey, he said coldly. I need you again, man. I need that sweet shit you do. Yeah, he said, I don't think so. I could tell something was wrong. Why, man? What's up? That's fucked up what you did. What did I do? I said, confused. That was some real bullshit. It's fucked up. Click. I was trying to replay our last interaction. As far as I could tell, everything had gone perfectly. So perplexed, I called Cherie. Hey, babe, did anything happen with Slice last week? Oh no, she said, remembering. I just didn't have the cash that I thought I had. Well, what did you give him? I said, 400. I only had 1,000. I told you to give him $1,000, I belted out. At the time, because of my IRS issues, we didn't have credit cards. We were functioning on cash, and it was Friday night. These were the days before ATMs were everywhere, and it would be Monday at 9 a.m. before we could have gotten more cash. That was all I had, she snapped back. He had his fucking kids for the weekend. I promised him $1,000. I took him off of another job. Well, I have a baby over here who's going to need to eat this weekend too. I wasn't giving him all my cash. What do you want me to do? I want you to do what the fuck you say you're going to do. So you just don't pay the man. You don't call me. You don't say shit. You broke my word. Now this issue is represented by his Mercury being conjoined to Venus opposing Saturn, but also his Sun and South Node opposing that Aries North Node. Aries rules barbers. So the whole barber story seems like it is true. Will, I am not your errand girl. Ain't nobody say you was my errand girl. Just stop overreacting. He'll live. This moment is among the handful of times in my life where I hit an absolute 10 of fury. In general, I'm a man who measures his words. This was not one of those times. You know what? Maybe one day you'll be worth something, I said, slamming down the phone. So him like basically losing his composure. That's that Mars square ascendant. If God were to give me back one sentence from my entire life, to erase it, to make it so I never said it, and the person never heard it, it would be those 7 words. Something broke in our marriage, something we would never get back. Cherie would later confide that this was the most her feelings had been hurt in her adult life. Cherie and I had deteriorated quickly after that. We argued about everything. Nothing was too trivial to fight about. I recall criticizing how she washed a skillet. Cherie and I would go days without speaking to each other. Criticize how she washed a skillet. That's his Jupiter and Virgo ruling his 7th house, but also him just being a Mars and Virgo type person. Cherie and I would go days without speaking to each other. We even invented a game that we played when people came over called, You Know What I Hate About You? And the winner was whoever could make our guests laugh the most. I found myself yet again in love's death spiral. It was a vicious riptide, dragging our dreams into the depths. Cherie took Trey and went to clear her head back home in Schenectady. Our marriage was becoming increasingly unbearable for her. She was going to take a few weeks to decide what she wanted to do. The Baked Potato was a small lounge in Studio City. Tisha Campbell and Dwayne Martin, two close friends of mine, yeah, him and Dwayne are very close apparently, invited me to join them there. They were strangely insistent that I show up. I'm not really a lounge guy, but they assured me that I'd be happy if I came. A little after 8 p.m., I walked through the door, made my way to their table, Dwayne, Tisha, and Jada Pinkett. And just like that, I was a lounge guy. Dwayne was always in the middle of some deal, brokering some takeover or something, managing the band while simultaneously purchasing the venue they were performing in. Tisha was the matchmaker. She knew that Cherie and I were on the outs, and she wanted to make sure, just in case, that I had no consideration other than Jada. They neglected to inform Jada or myself of this planned meeting. I had seen Jada a few times around town over the past year. Nothing too memorable, casual Hollywood highs and buys. She was still stunningly gorgeous to me, still swaggy, still full of that delicious East Coast energy. But something was different, something a little deeper, something profound just below my depth of perception. Maybe it was that I was older now. I was a father, perhaps I was more open, or maybe pain recognizes pain, but I felt her differently. She was only 22, but her eyes felt like they had witnessed centuries. They seemed to know secrets and struggles far beyond her years. We talked about everything. She could meet me, ascend, and elaborate on all topics and subjects, from Tupac to apartheid, from college basketball to Ganesh and Eastern mysticism. All that Ganesh and Eastern mysticism that's represented by that moon conjoining Neptune as well. It was like we went away to a private place alone, content to embrace the joy of our questions, unburdened by the quest for answers. Being together was the answer. Hours passed like minutes. I could sense the potential potency of our combined energies. Cities and empires were being constructed in my mind as we laughed and pondered and debated. Her body was so tiny, but her spirit was so strong. She was confident, solid, unwavering, a 10-ton cornerstone holding up the Great Pyramid. Jada would later confide in me that she had, first of all, a 10-ton cornerstone holding up the Great Pyramid. That's like some Masonic double speak. Or is he like dropping some Masonic hints or some shit? Jada would later confide in me that she had heard a voice speak clearly with no sentimentality, just matter of fact. That is your husband. For the time being, she rejected the prophecy. I was married, and that was a non-starter. We gently returned from our private inner adjourn and settled back into our hard metal seats. So Will's ascendant is in her 7th house, so it makes sense that she received that voice saying, Will is your husband, especially because she got Mars in Aquarius, which can make her very intuitive. We said our extended goodbyes. Neither of us really wanted to leave. I walked her to her car and watched her drive away. I left that night dazed, smashed, imprisoned between elation and reality. I had met a queen strong enough to bear the weight of my dreams, but it was not to be. A few days later, Cherie came home from her time in Schenectady, and we decided we'd meet at our favorite restaurant, The Palm. They had the best lobster in the city. They were huge. We always ordered one, the perfect portion size to share. I guess I had hoped that the time apart and the intertwining of our forks over our favorite meal would somehow rekindle and reconnect our wounded hearts. I had certainly put my faith in the revitalizing power of melted butter and those silly plastic lobster bibs. I arrived first. Cherie had dropped Trey off at her mother's directly from the airport. She walked in. She was beautiful as always. We hugged and took our seats. I had pre-ordered. She liked when I did that. We talked about Trey in Schenectady and her father's new dojo. He and Trey had a ball. He had gotten him his own little G or gi or whatever that is. Everything was perfectly pleasant, but suddenly I started to feel lightheaded. There was a weird, dry, metallic taste forming in my mouth. I tried to breathe through it. I was thinking, oh shit, am I about to pass out? That's his moon conjoined to Neptune, the secret's eating at him. Are you okay? Cherie asked, looking concerned. A surging wave of dizziness, a shortness of breath, beads of sweat jumping up on my forehead. Yeah, I'm good, I lied. Let me run to the bathroom real quick. I charged into the bathroom and locked myself into one of the stalls. I sat down to try to catch my breath. What the hell is happening? I suddenly burst into tears. For the next 20 minutes, 20 minutes? He was in the bathroom for 20 minutes? If I was Cherie, I would have been banging on that door like, get the fuck out of here. What the fuck? Like, what kind of dump are you taking? I purged, toggling back and forth between sobbing and laughing hysterically. Am I having a fucking nervous breakdown? And with his moon Neptune conjunction in Scorpio in the 6th house, he could very well have a nervous breakdown from time to time. And slowly, my emotional truth came into vivid 3-dimensional clarity. I knew with absolute certainty that Jada Pinkett was the woman of my dreams. But I had committed my life before God to Cherie, and there was no version of me ever going back on my word. My tears were railing against the harshness of this reality. Him crying all the time, that's that moon Neptune conjunction as well. And my laughter was cursing its absurdity. But soon my hysteria subsided. I know this isn't the first time he was like crying and laughing at the same time. Yes. And my laughter was cursing its absurdity. But soon my hysteria subsided. I wiped my tears and I exited the stall fully prepared to spend the rest of my life with Cherie Smith. Like she wouldn't have been able to see that he was crying his eyes out. And again, you notice how he really did not go into detail about 6 degrees of separation, his character Paul, and how Paul was in a sex scene with another man and how that was controversial back then. He didn't even talk about how that was controversial. And if he's truly a straight man, that would have been his opportunity to explain his rationale for agreeing to be in a film like that and playing that type of role. But you notice he glossed right over that 6 degrees of separation movie. He also glossed right over his friendship with Dwayne Martin. So this basically just shows you that Will Smith is being very selective in what he chooses to reveal in his book. And I'm just looking at him like with that side eye, like, yeah, you think you slick, Will, but those who really know the real Will Smith, you know, in terms of, you know, all the speculation and the rumors over the years, we know what's really up. So stay tuned for chapter 13. Let me see what chapter 13 is called. I might be doing chapter 13 in a few days. Chapter 13 is called where is it? Chapter 12 is called Desire. Chapter 13 is called Devotion. I believe it's Devotion. Yep. So stay tuned for Devotion. But again, now they're talking about that Will might be facing some consequences for his actions at the Oscars, like the Oscar board or something like that, or the Academy Awards board. But they said that he might be suspended or he might be, something might be revoked where he can't qualify for a nomination anymore. But I didn't hear them talk about he might get his Oscar revoked. So again, I'm still believing that this was staged. The fact that they allow him to receive that Oscar, security didn't escort him out after he assaulted Chris Rock. Come on now. And again, we're dealing with Hollywood. These are all actors. So stay tuned for some live streams, case studies, more Will Smith's book. I will be back. All right, peace.